365 closings in 2.5 years for free. And by the end of this video, you're going to have the exact blueprint of how you can do this for your own business. Today, I've got the pleasure of bringing on Nav Bindra, who as a mortgage broker or a loan officer has closed well over 300 transactions in 2.5 years, leveraging YouTube and short form content. And for the first time ever, he breaks down his entire process from how he comes up with video ideas to knowing exactly what to say in those videos, how to convert views into leads and clients, and some of the ninja strategies he's used in order to build a massive following with his free content. This is the most tactical video that I've seen on how to leverage social media as a lender or mortgage broker, and you're going to have a blueprint so that you can leave this video and know exactly what to do, because as you're going to see, Nav is very tactical, very specific, goes into immense detail, and is very analytical, so you're going to have data behind what you're doing so you have clarity on how you can do this yourself. Now, before bringing on Nav, I just want to mention I will link his incredible content below so that you can use this and emulate this as a reference point for your own business. Now, without further ado, let's bring on Nav and talk about the most tactical strategies that you can implement in order to skyrocket your production, start closing more deals. But the most beautiful part is every single one of them will come directly to you for free. All right, Nav, well, super excited to have you here today. And what you've done as a mortgage broker or a loan officer is pretty incredible over the last couple of years. And I think this is going to be a conversation that many have been asking for, but not many are talking about, which is you've been able to leverage a very tactical niche, but also blending that with social media to do over 300 closings in 2.5 years, which is a dream for most people in your position. So, before we start diving into the tactical of how you've done that, let's hear a little bit about your story and what got you to this point.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I loved our interactions, and I would love to have this discussion with you. So I'm very passionate about social media, and this was back in I think it was 2019. I was not a mortgage agent then, but I realized the power of social media because I had a company, nothing to do with mortgages or anything, but then we sent that product to an influencer, and that influencer posted, and we sold 130 of those products in one night. And I didn't even have the means to fulfill that order, and I was like, that's amazing. I sent it to an influencer. They actually opened it on their stories, and I sold a few $1,000s of product. And that's where I realized that I want to be on the other side. I want to be the influencer, so that if I have a product which is a damn good product, the product has to be good. I'll be able to sell it more and impact more lives. So that was my first epiphany moment of social media and the power of it. And then fast forward to 2021, when I became a mortgage agent, I leveraged those learnings, and I was just counting. We are at closing number 365, which is today, in the last 2.5 years, just over 2.5 years.
That's crazy, and I think that's a really good perspective to have, and it really aligns with my perspective in the sense that, when I was studying for my real estate license, I was watching all these other people on YouTube that were talking about, how to do well in real estate and learning from them. And when I got my license, the perspective was, well, maybe people would want to watch me and maybe I can be on the other end of that if people are consuming my content. And so I love that you really take that approach of putting yourself in the consumer's shoes and saying, how can I be the one that creates leverage, which is incredible. And so let's dive into that. That's 365 closings in 2.5 years is unbelievable. And I'd love to know the platforms that you specifically focus on, because you're very tactical, very consistent on a couple specifically. So let's kind of unpack that.
So Mike, I started with YouTube. I did not have an Instagram account for the longest time, in fact. But then I realized that, so YouTube, Instagram, and email marketing, which is tied in with webinars that I do. Those are the 3 platforms that I use for lead gen. YouTube is by far the biggest conversion. I think so if I were to do my numbers, 98% of my conversion happens on YouTube. But I do create videos on Instagram every single day. Now, knowing the data that I have, it would be easy for me to say that I only spend 2% of my time on Instagram, but that's not the point in real estate. The reason why I build like I create reels and posts on Instagram is because of recall. So I did create trust on YouTube, but those people may not be ready to buy at that time. And real estate is all about trust and longevity. And people, could be ready to jump in the market in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months after they watched, your video and gain that trust. But they are on Instagram every single day, and I want to be in front of them every single day so that they can recall the trust that they developed from my YouTube video. So that's the reason why I use these two platforms. YouTube is for generating trust, and that's where the maximum conversion lies, and Instagram is for recall. And then I have webinars, which is very similar to generating trust. It's just another vehicle that I just started using this year. And I do webinars and followed by email marketing on the people who subscribe to that webinar to generate more leads. So those are kind of, three platforms that I use when it comes to socials.
That's incredible. And I love that too, because it pretty much emulates my exact strategy, and great minds think alike. So it's incredible to see what you've done with that. And I'm really curious to dive into the YouTube side of things, because I see a lot of loan officers and mortgage brokers kind of dabbling on Instagram. Some are pretty consistent, but very few. And I think you and I are both, friends with some of the very few that are actively leveraging YouTube. Very few people in your space are leveraging long form content in such a tactical way that you're doing. I'd love for you to maybe dive into what type of content you're creating and what that journey's been like to be able to build momentum, because a lot of people are fearful of it. They're scared of, the editing is overwhelming. They don't know what to say. There's more moving parts when it comes to something like YouTube. So what has that journey been like for you when it comes to YouTube, and what type of content have you found works really well?
So Mike, I was creating, so I had two YouTube channels. So I already had a YouTube channel that we started in 2019, which was mostly talking about immigration and our journey of coming to Canada. And, all that was there on that channel. And we created some personal trust there with my wife. And then when I was getting into real estate, I thought that I need a separate channel, just the way, I wanted to segregate personal life from professional. And that's when I started doing, YouTube for real estate, specifically. And right now, I think we are at 14,000, 15,000 subscribers in the last 1.5 years, 2 years that I've started the channel, which is great. And it's even better for real estate because the ticket size that we get per customer is pretty high. So 15,000, even if you convert 1% of it, it's a lot of money, right? So that's what I realized, when I started doing YouTube, that I don't necessarily need a lot of views, and I don't necessarily need a lot of subscribers to still make a shitload of money. And that was the intent. Plus, I think a lot of people who are trying to do YouTube, and especially for real estate, I think we confuse ourselves between entertainment and providing a lot of value, and we kind of do infotainment. I don't think YouTube works like that. It's on one extreme, you have extreme entertainment, Mr. Beast style, or on the other hand, you have extreme value add, which a lot of YouTubers are doing, selling different services. There's no in between unless you are really pro at it. So that's what I understood in the beginning, that I need to create extreme value, and I spend on average 8 to 12 hours of research, and then I write the script, and then I shoot. And editing is something that I always knew is the lowest ROI on my time, and therefore I always had an editor. Even from the beginning, I think it was 1 year into my YouTube journey on the personal channel that I actually got an editor, because I always felt that my time is worth more than the time spent on editing. So it's always better to outsource the things that are time consuming and not the best ROI on your time. And that's what I always did. So most of my time is spent on research. In fact, just before this call, I spent about 2 more hours just finishing up the research for my next video on Sunday. And I have this habit of just Monday and Tuesday is all about research and putting the content together, and Wednesday is about shooting.
That's awesome. There's so much to unpack there. And one of the things that I love that you said is essentially going with the concept of disassociating yourself from the vanity metrics. A lot of people, whether it be in realtor space or lenders and mortgage brokers, they're so consumed with the views, with the comments, with the subscribers, without knowing the fact and really realizing that you don't need a lot of that in order to do really well. I just had a woman come up to me when I spoke at an event 2 days ago saying she has 20 subscribers, 4 YouTube videos, but just closed a $900,000 listing. Or another friend that has 17 views and closed a $1.4 million listing. And, we get paid really substantially for the work that we do. You don't need a lot of that. You just need the right views and the right subscribers instead of many. But another thing that you said that I think is so important is you are dialed in when it comes to the preparation. And a lot of people get overwhelmed, I find, when it comes to content because they block off time to record, they sit down, and now what? What do I say? What do I do? What am I talking about? So they blocked off 3 hours. Then they're spending 50% of the time figuring out what they're going to do. And then they're so frustrated that they don't even record, and the cycle continues. But having that routine of being dialed so that when it gets to the point of recording, I'm sure you know exactly what video, exactly what you're going to say, the main talking points, the big takeaways, the call to actions to convert. So it actually becomes enjoyable because you're having fun while doing it, but you're not worried about what you're going to say.
100%, and you're not going all over the place. You are very, like I make 20-minute videos as well, but that 20-minute videos are packed with value. Like if you miss a minute, you actually missed, a piece of value, right? So there's no, blurbing out stuff that people don't want to understand or they don't understand, or there's no going round and round, and that's what preparation does. And I make sure that I spend 80% of my time preparing for the video, and the shoot itself is hardly 30 minutes, 35 minutes for a 20-minute video. There are some retakes and that's it, right? So I'll be shooting today at 4, and I know I'll be done by 4:30 because it's a small 10-minute video. And that's it, right? Because I prepared for an entire day, almost 12 hours of preparation for that video. I'm not worried about what I'm going to say because I already know. And I already know that the video will do well. In fact, YouTube, the biggest problem is that we don't have a clear title in our head before we research. If we have a clear title in our head, and in fact I even have a thumbnail in my head, what the thumbnail would look like, what the title would look like, and then I start preparing the video, like the research of the video, and then I go around that topic, around that hypothesis that I've built, and then the research is more targeted, the video becomes more targeted, people are more engaged throughout the video, and it invariably does well. And even if it gets 100 views, just imagine, Mike, having a room full of 100 people listening to you, and if one person likes it and gets a home from you, that's an amazing ROI on that video or on that 10 hours that you spent, right? So I think that's where the mindset has to shift, and we need to spend a lot more time preparing without thinking of the consequence or the result, how many views you'll get, because in real estate it doesn't matter.
I agree, and I think that's such a good perspective. So many people would beg to have a room full of 100 people, but they get 100 views and they think it's a flop because it's not in the thousands, and they've completely disassociated themselves from the difference between reality and social, even though it's actually the same thing. Especially when you look at the type of content you and I create. Some random person isn't going to sit there after work and consume our information that isn't interested in, in your case, buying a home or learning more about getting a mortgage. We're not in that far entertainment space. We're in the infotainment space. And so there's so many things that I'm really excited to unpack here with you. The first, and this is going to kind of guide people through start to finish of how you do what you do. How the heck are you coming up with video ideas? Because a lot of agents and a lot of lenders and officers tend to overcomplicate the ideation process, or they go too far down the rabbit hole and they're not thinking about the right type of content. Like one example is very few people are going to watch a video of should you stage your home. But the average agent that wants a listing thinks that that's what somebody is looking for. And so I find there's a really interesting delineation between the content people should be putting out and what they think is going to be searched by their audience. So let's start with your ideation process. How are you coming up with an idea to form a video around?
Perfect. So, it's very simple. I have a group on my phone. It's a WhatsApp group, and only I am the member of that group. And now my editor, who is also doing some content planning, he wanted to do more, so he's also part of that group. And the only thing that we do on the group is whenever an idea pops in our head, we actually write that idea down. That can be used for a reel, that can be used for a YouTube video, but we just write the idea down, and we keep writing it the entire week. I'm talking to a client, and something interesting came up, let's say regarding down payment, and I'm like, that can be a good idea, and I write it down on that group. And by the end of the week, Monday is when I plan out my content, and Monday I just go through that group and I have a bunch of ideas to bounce off of. So that's one. On the staging one that you said, let's say I say that the staging is important and I have to make a reel out of it. I'll not put the title as staging is important. How can I get $50,000 more for my home will be my title, or on those lines, right? Numbers are really fascinating on YouTube and Instagram. People love numbers, and if you put that on title, thumbnail, one video will get 100 views. If you just flip the title and write that, how can you get $50,000 more for your home by doing all the same things, it'll just get 50,000 views, purely because you just flip the title. So ideas wise, I just write it down the entire week on that WhatsApp group. My editor also writes that, and then Monday I just watch that group, and I just create scripts out of that. Creating scripts is way simpler now, Mike. I had a content planner who used to do that. We don't have it anymore. You just put it on ChatGPT creates a beautiful script with numbers and with everything. You just need to validate those numbers. It's the easiest of it. Saved me almost 3 to 4 hours a week now, just by using ChatGPT, and they just learn the way you create content. So it's way easier now.
Yeah, I love that, and that was going to be my next question. So that's perfect, because so many people hear, "Oh my God, a 10 to 20 minute video. What am I going to say? How am I going to pack that full of value?" And we have tools, and these tools that we're now blessed with create so much more leverage compared to what you and I had to do, the manual work, in the years prior. Now,
I mean, if you write on ChatGPT, sorry, Mike, and I'm cutting you, but if you write on ChatGPT, how can I say, like, write me a script or an Instagram reel on how to save $50,000 by staging your home, and write it with a really good hook. It'll create a script which is 90% ready. I can guarantee it. It'll create a script that you can just put on Instagram. And same for YouTube. You can make it as long as as you want to, and it'll give you the right answers, and you just need to validate those numbers just to make sure that you are the facts are correct. And it's so simple. Like, I waste so much time doing that now.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you brought up hook. I'm going to come back to that in a second. What do you have to say to the people? Because I get this comment a lot. Oh my God, I don't have hours to spend preparing for a video. Because that's a huge talking point, is people saying they don't have the time to do a certain activity, which you and I both know just means they're not making it a priority. But a lot of people, when they're getting started in the YouTube space, have this, they really struggle to wrap their head around the amount of time it takes to create a value-driven video versus what I find, try and convince themselves they would do with that time in terms of something else, when they usually don't end up doing anything else with it. But what's your take on people that have this gripe with how much time it might take from start to finish to do a proper video?
I can't find another platform. Let's talk about YouTube, right? So yes, it takes time. Let's say 20 hours to create a video, but I can't think of another platform where you get paid to acquire customers. I'm not paying anything. YouTube is actually paying me. I get about $600 to $1,000 a month by creating 4 to 5 videos, a month, and I get paid $600 to $1,000 per month to acquire customers for my mortgage business. I don't think there is another platform that exists out there that can do that. And like Warren Buffett says, that you need to make money while you sleep. YouTube allows you to generate leads while you sleep. You don't have to door knock at 12 a.m. at night, but there would be someone who is watching you, and that's the leverage that you build for years to come. My video on a down payment still does about 1,000 views a week. right? And I created it last year. It still does 1,000 views a week. And that's amazing, right? Like I generate leads from a video that I made last year. I still continue to get paid for that video, and I am generating leads while I'm sleeping, and I'm not thinking of that video. If that's not enough for anyone to start doing social media, I don't know what is. So when I understood that, I was like, that's crazy. And most of the loan officers get generate leads from realtors. I actually do the other way around. I actually generate leads for my realtor partners, and that actually creates that longevity and that trust with the realtor partners. And now I'm getting leads from them, and now I get their trust. And now so it's fascinating how things can actually change for you, just because you have the trust of the consumers that both you, your lawyer, your renovators, your all the partners in real estate are actually seeking. And I get paid to do that.
It's incredible. And I agree. And that's, it's really funny because sometimes people will say, well, you're just talking about YouTube because, you've got a YouTube channel, and no, I have a YouTube channel for a reason, because I believe it's the best platform. Otherwise, I wouldn't be spending, like you, 20 hours a week creating content. I'd be on a different platform,
100%. And about generating, so YouTube and Instagram has a different approach from people, from your end consumer. So if people have to get educated, they'll never come on. Like, how many times have we gone on Instagram and search how to buy a home? You'll never do that, because that's not the lens why you are going on Instagram is for scrolling. And it's almost like, if you draw a parallel with real estate, Instagram and showing up on Instagram is almost like door knocking. You show up on someone else's door, you are unwanted in most cases. And that's what Instagram is. They're trying to see funny videos, and there is a nav coming, oh, here's to buy a home, and here's to stage a home, and no one gives a shit on Instagram, right? Unless you have a very strong hook, and we'll probably talk about that. But YouTube, they actually want to learn. So if you are able to deliver on what the person is looking for, how to buy a home in the next 90 days, how to how to have a plan on saving for down payment in the next 12 months, if that's what they are looking for and you deliver on that, that's immediate trust. So people actually came on the platform, which is YouTube, to learn. And even if you have a 20-minute video, they'll watch that, because they are there to learn. And that's the reason why I talk about YouTube so highly versus any other platform.
Agreed. Yeah, I've got the same kind of belief system when it comes to that. And so you mentioned leads, and I think that's what a lot of people are going to get excited about. I've seen people with big audiences that don't generate any leads. I've seen people with small audiences that crush leads left, right, and center. What's kind of your take on whether it be call to actions, or how are you actually turning views into leads and then eventually clients?
I think, Mike, I don't necessarily say book a call from the link. I rarely say that. I think of it a little bit differently. So I feel that if you create immeasurable value in that video, that's the reason why I spent 10 to 12, 13, 14. Sometimes I've spent over 2 days researching for a video if it's a very heavy video, right? So if I spend so much time in researching and giving factful information in the most authentic way possible with personal anecdotes, I think people connect to that, and then they would want to work with you, because you have shown so much value that they did not have. They actually and I think of it very differently. Even though people are not paying to watch my video, they are paying in time. And I want to make sure that I do justice to that time. I don't want to give half-baked videos which are old and you can find anywhere else. I actually put personal anecdotes in the most authentic way possible. Have a little bit of personality as well, because not all of my videos are about real estate. Some of those videos are about overall financial education. Some of those videos are about how I generated my wealth, how I bought in Calgary, how I invested in US. And some of those videos are not directly giving me revenue or not directly giving me leads, but I'm generating overall education on finance. Now, one of the things that I highly recommend people, and a lot of people don't do that, is have a website, and not the website that EXP or all these big brands give. Have a website that you have control over, and you can have downloadable content there. You can actually say that here's a 2-page guide on how to buy a condo in Toronto and what to look for. Here's a guide on closing costs in GTA, and what to look for. Here's a guide on how to buy your first investment property. And if you do that, you get an email and a permission to then run a campaign, an email campaign to them, and again give value. Don't never say that buy a home from me, but give them value on, here are 4 things that I did. Here are 4 mistakes that I made while buying my first investment property. And this is followed, by the guide that you shared on how to buy your first investment property. And if you do that, that's what generates first email and then leads. So it's not necessarily people just book a call from the description on YouTube. You just give some content that they can download, create more trust, and from that they book a call. It's a long process. I'm not saying that you create video today and you will get leads tomorrow. You'll have to do it in a sustained way for at least 6 months to start seeing the rotation happening and you generating leads. I think people quit pretty quickly.
Big time. I see that no matter what people decide to take, whether it be, short form, long form, email marketing, they're always putting a time constraint where if it doesn't work out by this time, then I'm going to go on to something else. And that's usually, when they're on the verge of hitting that tipping point of it actually working out. But you said something really important, which is you've got immense clarity around the value that you bring. And a lot of that comes from relatable experiences. I'd love for you to kind of dive into your niche, because I know that you've got a niche of, first-time home buyers, immigrants, and somebody that you can relate to. Do you want to talk about, why you decided to go down that avenue, the importance of having a niche and being able to speak to somebody that you can understand yourself as well?
So Mike, when I was buying my first home, I was so much in the dark on the process. I went to I straight away went to a realtor. Now I know that's not probably the right thing. You have to first know your numbers, right? So you go to a mortgage agent or your bank. But I went to a realtor, and then he said, "Oh, do you know your numbers?" And I was like, it was an afterthought. Okay, let me just know the numbers. And they gave me a number which was a random number. So there was so much. And I'm a very numbers driven guy, and I want to get into information, right? And there was no one who was providing me that information. And a lot of people said, you don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, right? And that doesn't sit well with me if I'm spending $50, $100, $200,000 on a home as down payment, right? So I wanted to know everything. And that's where I understood the gap, that the biggest gap in this industry is not there are not enough good mortgage agents or realtors. The biggest gap is there's not enough education, and especially for first-time home buyers. And my niche is first-time home buyers, immigrants, and those people are coming from outside of Canada. They doesn't necessarily understand the difference between a mortgage agent and a realtor. Even it's as basic as that, and it was important to bridge that gap. And that's where I saw that there's an opportunity, and that's where I pounced. And to date, I think 95% of our 365 closings have been first-time home buyers, immigrants buying their first home. And there are so many of them that we can capture in the next 10 years, because, this is a massive growing market. So the lack of education, the gap that I saw, that's the reason why we created this niche. Plus, I was an immigrant. I bought my first home, then I bought my first investment property, then I bought my first property in US. So there was a lot of firsts that even I was doing. So it just became automatically relatable.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's such a good word is the relatability, because so many people hear, the riches are in the niches or the niches, and they sit there and kind of think, well, what the heck is my niche? And my first kind of word of advice is, who can you relate to? Like, did you buy first time? Okay. Probably you might want to start there. Were you an immigrant? Did you relocate? Like what experience do you have that you can relate to others? Because when it comes to that email marketing and the short form content, those little value drops, you're able to speak to somebody based on the pain points that you faced and they face. And that kind of leads to something that I get asked constantly, and I'm really curious to hear your take on this. Different languages, because obviously you speak another language, and I see people that have a second language of English, but they maybe speak Hindi or Punjabi or Spanish or French, and they're wondering, what should I do? What should I do it in my native language? Should I do it in English? What's kind of your take on that?
Let's break it down. So to become a successful realtor, at least in GTA, let's assume a $15,000 per deal, as a benchmark. So you make $15,000 if you close a home. Let's take that's the average. Multiplied by 40, is $600,000. So you'd only need 40 people to trust you enough to buy a home from you as a realtor. For a mortgage agent, maybe that number is 60, 70, right? Because the commission is a little bit lower. Um, you only need those many people to become successful and make a $500,000 business. If you think from that lens, then aren't there enough immigrants who speak Spanish who are looking to buy their home? If the answer is no to that, then create in English. But I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. And if the answer is yes, that's it. You got your niche. The only reason why I create my content in English and not in Hindi is because I'm trying to hit a certain level of people who are working in Amazons, who are working, like my average customer is making anywhere between 180 to $220,000 a year family income. And the only reason why I wanted to hit that was because in India is a diverse country. There are certain people who are in south of India who doesn't necessarily understand Hindi or Punjabi, and the only medium of communication is English, where it'll be common to everyone. So there were a couple of reasons why I started creating English. One was, as a mortgage agent, I required them to at least qualify, and I wanted to hit those people who are making a certain amount of income, and that's where I started speaking in English and created content there. And the other one was just to speak to all the audience around India who doesn't necessarily understand Hindi or Punjabi, and I wanted to speak to them as well. I was not necessarily looking to get Canadian clients. So a lot of people misread me making videos in English that I'm trying to get Canadian clients native to here. Out of the 365, only one is Canadian, or only one is not South Asian. Forget about Canadian, right? Only one is not South Asian, and that was a realtor referral. Everything else was South Asian because there's just enough meat on the bone for a lot of people to actually bite into it. That's the way I look at it. 40 to 50, 60 clients, 100 clients, you'll be golden in this industry, and you would have that in your niche at least.
Yeah, no, I love that perspective. Is you've got this perspective of abundance, and I think a lot of people have this perspective of scarcity of, well, what if there's not enough? And based on actually doing the research and understanding the cultural demographic of your market center and who you're going after, that there's plenty of opportunity, and that you just need to capture a portion of that to make a wonderful income. So I think that's a really incredible kind of perspective to have. Now, I would love your take on this journey when it comes to mentorship, because I know, like me, you invest heavily into yourself. You're always learning, you're always growing, you're helping other people grow. Sometimes people will look at the journey that you've been on and think, well, holy cow, where do I get started? What do I do? And so what has mentorship coaching done for you, and has that been an integral part of your business?
100%, Mike. I used to have unpaid mentors in the beginning in the form of my uncle, who was working in the same industry, and obviously, that was great. But I always, and I don't know who told me this, maybe it was my uncle who was my first mentor, that the fastest way to not make mistakes is to learn from other people's mistakes. And there's one more thing that someone told me when I was, I think in my early 20s. Now I'm 37 now, so in my early 20s, is that if you can learn one good thing from everyone that you meet, and if there's no one good thing, because not everyone is good, right? So if you can learn one bad thing from anyone that you meet and not do that, you will grow immensely as a person. And that just got ingrained in me. And then I always knew that I can actually learn from other people's mistake, and I don't necessarily have to make those mistakes, because I can actually just ask people the mistakes that they did. But I started to outgrow all the unpaid stuff, right? So there was a point in my life when I was like, okay, what do I do next, right? For example, in my family, it's not a business family that I come from, right? So I didn't know, and I started doing business like a job, and that doesn't work, obviously. And then I was like, okay, how do I learn this? Because I don't have a mentor, I don't have anyone. That's when I started paying people to do that, right? So I think mentorship is really important. It's the fastest way to not make mistakes. I just read a reel. There was a bag. Let's say this is a cup, right? A lot of times, if I ask Mike, would you pay $1,000 for this cup? and obviously it's a normal cup, hardly worth a few cents, you would say no. Most people would say no. But most people who are seeking mentorship would ask, what's in the cup? Maybe there's $100,000 in this cup. You never know, right? So I think that's the mindset shift that you need to make. Instead of thinking mentorship, or especially paid mentorship, when someone has a course or something, instead of saying, oh, it's too expensive, I just changed my mindset and I was like, okay, what do I get in return for spending X amount of money? And if that X amount of money that I get is, in my mind, 5 to 10x more than what I'm paying for, I would find, like, if you did not have $100,000 and if I told you there was $100,000 in it, and it's $1,000, I mean, you would borrow the $1,000 and buy this because you can actually pay it off, pay off that $1,000, right? That's the mindset that we need to change. And I always had that mindset because of the good early mentors that I had, and I continue to invest. This year I invested about $40,000 in my learning. I invested $7,000. In my mind, it's the cheapest workshop that I attended. 6,000 US dollars, Alex Hermosi, 2 days. I was with his team, the entire team, and I got all my unanswered questions for my business for this year in those 2 days. And that was the cheapest, like the best ROI that I can achieve. Like I'm pretty sure I'll make $1 million just from the advice that I got from those 2 days. And a lot of people actually would not join that because it's 6,000 US dollars, and that's a lot for 2 days. But for me, it was the cheapest workshop that I attended. So it's just, mentorship is important, no doubt about it. But it's also important to understand what the ROI you will get, and then find a way to, like, pay that money.
Big time. Yeah, the perspective is everything. I invested $150,000 this year into one of my coaches, and I went in with the perspective that based on what I know I can learn, that I will make a 10x ROAS on this, or return. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they question what is the return going to be, instead of going in and saying, I'm going to make sure there is a return on this. Because really, if somebody's proven something and it's worked for others, it can work for you. But you've got the skeptics that are trying to figure out, why would it not work for me? What if it doesn't work for my market? What if I'm not cut out for it? But the truth is if you do the work, you can make it always work out. Because I'm sure, like you, I bought some absolute trash programs in the past, but there's always been at least one thing I can take that I can guarantee a return on if I apply it. And so perspective is everything. And I love that you really need into that.
Yes, absolutely. And I've had some shit programs that I've been part of, but those are all the things that I don't do now, right? So like, I learned that this is not how it should be done, and that's a learning in itself, right? So it's not about, I never think of, I spent $20,000. So one of the programs that I spent money on this year, I don't think I'll hardly be able to make up the money that I spent on it. And that's okay too, because at least, it was not zero. I at least learned something. I at least learned how to reach out to media. If nothing, that can probably give me 4 deals, and that can make up for the cost of the program. So not all programs are amazing, but like you said, you can always find ways of, at least recouping your investment. And if not, that's fine. It's just part of the game, right? Some programs will work, some programs won't, but that should not stop you from taking them.
Big time. And so, we've done a pretty deep dive into YouTube, and I love your perspective on everything. I'm really curious to tap into short form, because obviously short form is a different beast, as you alluded to. They're two different audiences, two different approaches. I can make the assumption you're probably not spending 20 hours on one short form video. What is that difference like for you when it comes to creating not just short form, but you are hyper consistent with your short form? So we've unpacked your process for YouTube. What does that journey look like for you to put out such incredible value-driven content at scale on short form?
So Mike, it's important to first of all batch produce content for short form, because you can actually shoot 15 to 20 videos in one sitting, because it's just 1 minute. So I try to squeeze my time into into that 2 hours of shoot, and it's maybe 4 to 6 hours of preparation for those 15 days of short form content. And a lot of that content can be created by your editor, because they actually know how to use ChatGPT, and they can actually create scripts 80% ready for you, right? So I think it's important to automate as much as possible there and batch produce everything. So that's one thing that changed from last year to this year, and that's what made me consistent short form. I think the biggest two things that I feel are important for short form is consistency. You have to show up every single day, especially in real estate, because you don't know when the person is ready. And what if they were ready on the day that you did not create that video, and then they did not remember you, and they reached out to another mortgage agent or a realtor. So it's important that we create every single day. So consistency is number one. And if you have ever, and anyone who is watching, if you have ever created a content, just go into the insights and see how long did, let's say you created a 1 minute reel, how long did people watch on average that reel, and you'll realize that it's only about 18 to 19 seconds. That's where hook comes in. So the second most important thing that I work on, 80% of my time is spent on that, is generating a strong hook, a strong question, something that generates curiosity. And if you do that, then you can actually keep people longer, generate a little bit more trust, even in that short form video, and add a lot of value. Because like I said, Instagram showing up on the feed is like door knocking. It's unwanted. So you need to have a strong hook and generate enough curiosity that they actually stop the scroll. So if you are able to do these two things, like create a really strong hook and do it consistently, I think it's inevitable that the audience will grow. And that's the only thing that I do short form. And I create the same content on YouTube Shorts. I don't do TikTok because TikTok is banned in India, and therefore a lot of South Asians are not there. And that's the only reason why I don't do TikTok. Maybe it's a limiting belief that I have. I tried doing it for 6 months, but it's just my audience was not there on TikTok because it's banned in India. So that's where I thought that it's probably not the best ROI on my time. But I create the same content on Instagram and put it on YouTube, and it works like a charm. And I do it consistently and batch produce it.
That's amazing. And I love that you found ways to create leverage of that. And I think finding those efficiencies can make you so much more scalable and also help with the consistency. The last kind of thing that you talked about was email marketing. What does that look like? Because I think email, at least from my perspective, is one of the highest return on time and an investment that you will ever find. And it's the one thing I see most agents or loan officers or mortgage brokers completely ignoring, or they're just sending out some templated nonsense in a pre-built drip campaign. But I'm sure for somebody like you that's an expert in marketing and advertising, you understand the power of proper value-driven email marketing.
100%. And it has to be a campaign which is not very pushy. I think the biggest thing that people don't want to listen to in their emails is market at a glance, like these market synopsis. The market went up, the market went down. That's just news reporting. And that's the one thing that you should avoid. You should bring in some personality. Like the last campaign that I did, it was my experience of putting down a deposit. And that was so scary for me. Like, I put down a deposit on a home, and that was scary as shit, even though I know that I can actually get the deposit back because it's a conditional offer. But it was scary as shit. I was giving a $30,000 check to someone, and that personality should come into email marketing, and that should, in my open rate on average is 63%, which is pretty nice. On an 8,000 email list that I have, 60% is nice. And I've been doing it consistently every week. And when I do a workshop, after the workshop I have a string of emails that go out, and all speak to my personality. I never say that, okay, go buy this house. I always speak about the team, our experiences, certain anecdotes, and I just take out time to create that drip campaign once. And for every webinar that I do, I run that same drip campaign, and that actually works. On my workshops, the open rate is almost 82%. So if 500 people attended, the 400 people attended, the 82% are looking at my emails, and that's where we get a lot of conversion on to calls as well. So yeah, just not doing generic stuff and doing something with more thought, and something that speaks to your personality as well, so that they connect with you. I think that's where email marketing works like a charm. And it's, like you said, it's the highest ROI that you can get, maybe equivalent to YouTube, I would say, because on YouTube you have to show your face. Only then you'll get the ROI. On email, you can actually automate it, and you can have someone else, your assistant or someone, to do that as well. You can hire someone in Philippines, $4 an hour, to do that consistently as well, because you don't have to show your face there. So it's probably slightly higher ROI than you would get on YouTube.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It goes to a quote that I always live by, that if you go the extra mile, it's never crowded. So many people are just looking for what's the quickest way I can implement an email strategy. Okay, click this drip campaign and we're good to go. But if you just go that extra mile to personalize it and speak to your audience the way you would want to be spoken to in terms of putting yourself in the consumer's shoes, that extra little bit of effort that doesn't take a huge amount of time when you have the tools like ChatGPT, it makes a world of a difference when it comes to the return. And Nav, you've been through such an incredible journey, and I think some people are going to listen to this and just make the assumption that you got in, started crushing it, everything's sunshine and rainbows, but you have had, things that did not succeed in the past. And do you want to kind of give some context as to the importance of the journey and making sure that you keep going and never give up? Because I know that you are very much a warrior and you've pushed through some very difficult times to be able to get to the point where you've earned the success that you now have.
Absolutely, Mike. I started my first business in 2017. I was in Hong Kong, and we were building shopping, like mobile apps for shopping malls. Pretty boring stuff. But I think the biggest lesson was that I was in the wrong market. That I was working in Hong Kong and I was making a lot of money in my job. And I was like, okay, let me just fund my business, while in Hong Kong. But we were looking at a very different audience. We didn't understand the language, and that was a pretty expensive lesson that we learned. We lost about 6 figures in that business, and I thought that I'll crush it in my first year, and we'll probably exit in 5 years to Amazon or whatever, right? So these are the dreams in your first business, right? But obviously, that business kind of failed. We came to India, we started a couple of more businesses. They did not do very well, and that's where I understood that the power of social media and creating a brand. But there was a point in my life when I left my job for my business, and the business did not work. I wanted to, I inside, I was like, I'm never going to quit my job to start another business. And that was like, I think 2 years when I had this block in my head but I was not getting fulfillment in a job because I already knew that. That's the reason why I quit my job in the first place, right? That's where I was like, I need to make, like a little bit more effort. I'm more informed, and I had to get over that hurdle in my head of failing once or twice, but once was a pretty big hit that we got. The next time I was just more prepared, and I didn't want to overcomplicate things, because the thing is that we overcomplicate business. It's not complicated. You just need one idea, and it doesn't have to be a path-breaking idea. It could be as simple as becoming a realtor. And yes, there are 150,000 realtors, and there are 30,000 mortgage agents, and there are banks to be, but you just need to do better than them.
Yeah.
That's it. It's simple. It's not easy to implement, but it's simple to understand, right? Is there any other mortgage agent who is crushing it? If the answer is yes, why can't I be that mortgage agent? Mm-hmm. It's just that understanding that we need to have in order to get over any failures or any hurdles in our head. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I love that you kind of brought it to that point of the difference between simple and easy, because success in real estate, whether you're a loan officer, mortgage broker, realtor, is very, very simple what you need to do. You need to get clients, service clients, nurture clients. And there's only a handful of ways you can get them. And then there's one way to close them, and then a few ways to nurture them. Like, it's really not rocket science, but it's not easy and do the work, because there's a lot of grit, mental toughness. I know a lot of people have, their own mental health struggles. And when you can really simplify it and just focus on one thing at a time, like you've been able to do, or a couple things as you continue to scale, and you can remove all the distractions. As soon as you can stay focused in one lane, I find most agents can crush it, but they're so distracted by the next tip, trick, trend, somehow overnight success opportunity that they found or heard about on YouTube, that they chase it instead of just staying hyper specific, which is the only way that you're going to get to the point that you've gotten to now on YouTube, is saying, hey, these first 10 videos got me nothing, but maybe the next 10 will, and maybe the next 10 will, and eventually get to the point where 365 deals later, all of that compounded growth and learning amounted to where you're at today.
And the grind is real, right? Despite the following in anything that we do, in my first year we did 87 files, so 87 closings in first year, and I was doing it all on my own with a little bit of help from a couple of underwriters, and I made 2,500 calls to close those 87 files. So despite all the trust that I was putting in, I was still getting so those are failures, right? Those are all the people who did not buy from me. So there is grind. The conversion is not 100% just because you are on YouTube. There's so much grind behind every one of them. And there are people who left me 3 days before closing because they got 0.02% better from the bank, and all that, shit also is real. So I'm not trying to fantasize, getting into real estate and creating content and closing 365 deals, because the honest truth is that we have just gotten better at conversion. Now the conversion is almost 17 to 18%, but there is still about 80% people who we talk to who are either not ready or they don't buy from us, and that's okay too. It's just a numbers game, right? So I'm not taking away anything from the grind that happens behind the scenes, but still I would say the conversion is way higher if you're able to use these platforms to your benefit and create that trust, so that the conversion is higher than the average.
100%. And, I think it's incredible that we have people like you leading by example so that other people can emulate. And I think, when it comes to simplicity, it's looking at somebody like what you've done, and there's another loan officer in a different province or state or city that can, put their own spin on what you've done and use you as a role model and an example. And I think that's, the beautiful part about having people like you that are constantly innovating, growing, and paving the path of what's possible. And that's why, I'd love for you to kind of talk about Grow with Nav and what that journey has been like for you, because I know that, you've also had an incredible, blessed opportunity to help others do what you've done. And you're a servant leader at heart. And I know that you really care about making an impact on other people's business.
Absolutely, Mike. So Grow with Nav, was started as a mortgage company. Now the dream was one, and it still remains one, is that I want to retire 1 million immigrants with $5 million. Now, some people would retire with more, some people with less, but that's the dream, right? 1 million immigrants with $5 million. And one of the ways that I have to I can't do it all alone. I cannot close 1 million people. I can't, right? So I need to train other people who have potential and who can do what I am doing. And that's where, I help a lot of my realtor partners who are also focused on first time home buyers to train them on how to generate more leads. And I also help my team. Now I have a team of 7 people in the mortgage space as well. And, I help them also, on how to generate more leads and how to nurture those leads the way I used to do. So right now I'm actually not working with any one person, like one-to-one. But I am just enabling my team of realtor partners and mortgage agents to do what I do. And we have trainings, and I love doing that. I am a teacher at heart, so I love doing that. Whether I do it with people who we are actually servicing, or I do it with my team who are servicing people that we want to service. So Grow with Nav is all about retiring 1 million people with $5 million, and I can't do it alone. And that's the reason why I have really good realtor partners and mortgage agent team who is on this journey and on this mission to retire more people with more money.
That's incredible. That's a mission that, of course, helps you push through those times where you don't feel like recording and that you feel a little bit burnt out, because that's part of the journey that everybody's going to face. But when you have a big and a strong enough why that is predicated on passion, that's what's going to help push you to the end limits of what you're truly capable of. So, Nav, where can people go to find you, and what can people expect from you going forward? Because I know you're always cooking up new opportunities. I know that you're always making an impact on the industry and other people. And so, what can we expect from you going forward as you continue to elevate your game?
So, Mike, I'm all about education. So you can find me on YouTube, on Instagram with Grow with Nav. You can go to my website, www.growwithnav.com, and you can find a lot of resources there. Whatever new opportunities that I come with, they will be posted on those platforms. If you are a first-time home buyer, looking to buy, you can go to my website and book a call, and my team It's a free call, and my team will help you build a plan. We just don't tell you, okay, you are qualified for this. We actually build a plan for you, right? So, and if you are a mortgage agent who is looking to join, a team, I don't promise that we will be part of the team, but maybe there's a way that we can actually work together. So you can reach out to me from the website itself. So yeah, everything that I do in future would be posted on these three platforms: my website, Instagram, and YouTube.
I love it. Well, you make it as convenient as possible, as always, and always focusing on the customer journey. So, guys, again, make sure to go follow Nav, because I've known him for a bit now, and he's always elevating his game and is going to be a great role model and leader of what you can emulate in your business to see incredible success. And I know you're only going to take it to the next level. So thank you again, man, for coming on and sharing such a wealth of insight of how you've gotten to the incredible success that you have.
Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate it.